The galaxy had gathered to watch a surrender. Above the burning red skies of the Zarnak capital world, thousands of warships formed a giant circle in space. Their ships were massive, covered in dark metal and glowing weapons. The Zarnak Empire had not lost a war in 300 years. They ruled through fear. And today, they planned to add Earth to their long list of defeated worlds. In the center of that giant fleet floated one small human ship. It looked thin and simple. No heavy armor. No large cannons. No escort ships behind it. Just one silver vessel, quiet and still. Across the Zarnak command decks, officers laughed. "This is humanity's defense," one admiral said with a smile. "Perhaps they could not afford a real fleet," another replied. Cameras from many alien nations were watching. The whole galaxy wanted to see the moment humanity accepted defeat. Some felt pity. Others felt relief that it was not their world under threat. Inside the human ship, there was no laughter. Captain Elias Ward stood at the center of the bridge. He was calm. His hands rested behind his back. His officers worked quietly at their stations. No one looked afraid. The main screen showed the Zarnak flagship directly ahead. It was nearly 50 times larger than the human vessel. Its weapon systems were charging. Bright lines of energy moved across its surface like veins of light. A Zarnak transmission broke the silence. "This is Emperor Kale of the Zarnak Empire. You stand alone. Surrender now, and your species may serve instead of perish." The message echoed across open space so every watching system could hear it. On the human bridge, a young officer looked at the captain. "Sir, their weapons are reaching full charge." Captain Elias nodded slowly. "Hold position." The crew did not question him. Outside, the alien fleet tightened formation. Thousands of cannons aimed at the single ship. The sight was overwhelming. It looked like a storm about to break. In the Zarnak flagship, Emperor Kale leaned forward on his throne. His sharp eyes studied the human vessel. "They do not even try to run," he said. "Perhaps they are frozen by fear," an admiral answered. But something about the stillness bothered the Emperor. The human ship was not drifting. Not shaking. Not broadcasting distress. It simply waited. Back on the human bridge, Captain Elias finally gave an order. "Open channel." The connection went live across the galaxy. His voice was steady and clear. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the Terran defense vessel Horizon." Some alien officers laughed again at the word defense. Elias continued, "You believe we are alone because you see only one ship." The Emperor smirked. "You are alone." There was a small pause. Then Elias replied, "You mistake size for strength." Silence followed. On the human ship, power levels began to rise quietly. No bright lights flashed. No loud alarms sounded. Deep inside the vessel, systems that had never been used in open war began to wake. Energy readings confused the Zarnak scanners. "Strange output detected," a Zarnak technician reported. "It does not match known weapon signatures." The Emperor waved it off. "All ships, prepare to fire on my command." Across space, thousands of weapons glowed brighter. Inside the horizon, the bridge lights dimmed slightly as more power moved to the core. A crew member whispered, "Gravity drive stabilizing." Another said, "Field alignment at 80%. Captain Elias looked once more at the massive fleet before him. So many ships. So much confidence. So much pride. He pressed a small control on his chair. "Permission to demonstrate," he said softly. On the Zarnak flagship, the Emperor raised his hand to give the final order to fire. At that exact moment, the human ship began to glow. Not with fire. Not with shields. But with a deep blue light that bent the stars around it. For the first time, the Zarnak officers stopped laughing. And the single human ship did not move. It simply waited. The blue light around the human ship grew stronger. Stars behind it began to bend, as if space itself was being pulled toward the small vessel. The massive Zarnak fleet hesitated for the first time. Their sensors were screaming with warnings they did not understand. Energy spike increasing, a Zarnak officer shouted. Emperor Kale slammed his hand down. Fire! Thousands of cannons exploded with light. Beams of red and white energy tore across space. Missiles followed behind them like a storm of metal and fire. The attack was powerful enough to erase a planet's surface. On the human bridge, no one moved in panic. Impact in 3 seconds, a crew member said calmly. Captain Elias gave a single nod. Phase shift. The human ship flickered. Then it vanished. The combined fire of the entire Zarnak fleet passed through empty space and collided with each other. Explosions lit up the darkness. Shockwaves rolled through their own formation. Confusion filled the alien command decks. Target lost. Impossible. Before anyone could react, a voice broke through every Zarnak channel. Behind you. The human ship reappeared on the far side of the fleet. Not damaged. Not shaken. Perfectly still. How did they move that distance without warp? An admiral whispered. Captain Elias stood steady. Gravity lens ready. Ready, sir. Outside, a faint ring of blue light formed around the human vessel. It was not large. It was not loud. It looked almost harmless. From the Zarnak flagship, Emperor Kale felt something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. Turn the fleet, he ordered. Destroy that ship. But turning thousands of massive warships took time. The human ship did not rush. It did not dodge. It simply aligned itself with the center of the formation. Fire, Captain Elias said quietly. A single pulse left the ship. There was no massive beam. No explosion. Just a ripple, like a stone dropped into still water. For 2 seconds, nothing happened. Then the ripple touched the nearest Zarnak cruiser. The ship did not explode. It folded. Its front half twisted inward as if crushed by invisible hands. Metal bent. Lights went dark. The cruiser collapsed into itself without fire or sound. Shock spread through the fleet. Structural failure across multiple ships. Another vessel began to shrink, compressed by unseen force. Then another. And another. The ripple continued moving outward. Every ship it touched suffered the same fate. Hulls crumpled. Engines died. Weapon systems shut down instantly. Panic replaced pride. This is not a weapon, a Zarnak scientist screamed. They are bending gravity itself. The human pulse reached the flagship. Alarms filled Emperor Kale's throne room. The massive vessel shook as gravity pulled unevenly across its structure. Shields failing. Core stability dropping. But before total collapse, the ripple stopped. The human ship powered down slightly. The flagship, damaged but alive, drifted in silence. Around it, dozens of once proud warships were now broken shells floating in space. And the human vessel had only fired once. Across the galaxy, watching civilizations went silent. No one laughed now. On the human bridge, a young officer looked at the damage reports. Minimal output, sir. That was less than 5%. Captain Elias kept his eyes on the broken fleet. Send them a message, he said. A transmission echoed across space. You prepared a spectacle, Elias said calmly. So did we. Emperor Kale stared at the small ship on his screen. The fear he felt now was real. You used forbidden science, the Emperor growled. Elias replied, no. We used understanding. Behind him, the blue light began to build again. This time, stronger. The Zarnak fleet realized something terrible. The first shot had not been full power. It had been a warning. And the single human ship was preparing to fire again. The broken Zarnak ships drifted like dead giants in space. Metal scraps floated everywhere. Engines flickered weakly. Emergency lights blinked across dark hulls. The proud formation that once filled the sky now looked like ruins. And in the middle of it all, the single human ship glowed again. On the Zarnak flagship, chaos filled the command hall. Damage reports from 73 vessels. Navigation offline on half the fleet. Gravity distortions increasing. Emperor Kale gripped the arms of his throne. His voice was sharp. All remaining ships, concentrate fire. Destroy that human vessel at any cost. This time there was no laughter. Only fear. The surviving Zarnak warships adjusted position and began charging again. Their weapons glowed brighter than before. They would not underestimate the human ship twice. Inside the Terran vessel Horizon, the bridge remained calm. Multiple lock-ons detected, one officer said. Captain Elias stood still, watching the tactical display. Hundreds of enemy markers flashed red. Time, he asked. 7 seconds until enemy fire. Elias nodded once. Activate dread silence. Several crew members exchanged focused looks. This was the part no one outside humanity understood. Deep inside the ship, a hidden core awakened. Energy did not surge outward. It moved inward. The blue glow around the ship dimmed, then became thin, almost invisible. A soft hum filled the bridge. Outside, the Zarnak fleet fired. A second storm of destruction crossed space. Beams brighter than stars rushed toward the lone ship. Then something impossible happened. The beams slowed. Not stopped. Slowed. As if space itself had become thick like liquid. On Zarnak sensors, time readings began to distort. What is happening? An admiral shouted. The human ship remained perfectly still as the incoming fire crawled toward it at unnatural speed. Inside the Horizon, the hum grew deeper. Field expanding, a crew member confirmed. A faint ripple spread outward from the human ship, not violent, not bright. Just quiet. As it moved across space, everything it touched slowed down. Enemy ships trying to maneuver found their engines unresponsive. Missiles hung motionless in mid-flight. Energy beams froze like lines carved into glass. Even sound transmissions began to stretch and break apart. On the flagship, Emperor Kale tried to stand. But his movement felt heavy. Slow. Like walking through deep water. What have they done? He forced out. A Zarnak scientist stared at the readings in horror. They are not attacking us. They are controlling local time flow. The realization spread like ice through the command hall. The human ship was not just bending gravity. It was bending time. Outside, the entire battlefield had become silent. Frozen between heartbeats. Only one vessel moved freely inside that silent space. The Horizon. Captain Elias stepped forward slightly. He looked at the suspended enemy fleet around him. Massive warships hung powerless. Weapons trapped mid-fire. Pride frozen in place. He did not smile. Target weapon systems only, he ordered. Small pulses left the human ship, precise and controlled. Each pulse touched a frozen Zarnak vessel and quietly disabled its core systems. No explosions. No loss of life. Just total shutdown. Ship after ship went dark. Within minutes, the once unstoppable fleet became nothing more than powerless metal floating in distorted space. Primary objectives complete, an officer reported. Elias gave a slow breath. Release field. The hum faded. Instantly, time snapped back into normal flow. The delayed energy beams dissipated harmlessly. Zarnak crew stumbled as normal motion returned. Alarm systems screamed across every remaining ship. But their weapons no longer worked. Their engines were dead. Their power cores were offline. And in the center of it all, the small human ship remained untouched. A transmission opened from the horizon. Elias' calm voice spread across every channel. You believed power meant size. You believed numbers meant victory. A pause followed. Humanity learned something different. On the Zarnak flagship, Emperor Kale looked at the tactical display. Every ship under his command was disabled. By one vessel. One. For the first time in 300 years, the Zarnak Emperor understood a terrible truth. They had not come to witness humanity's surrender. They had come to witness their own defeat. Silence covered the battlefield. The once mighty Zarnak fleet floated helpless in open space. Engines were dead. Weapons were cold. Control panels sparked uselessly as crews tried to bring systems back online. Nothing responded. In the center of it all, the single human ship waited. It did not chase. It did not attack again. It simply remained there, steady and quiet. On the Zarnak flagship, Emperor Kale stood slowly from his throne. His long cloak dragged behind him as he stepped down toward the central command floor. Restore weapons, he demanded. We cannot, my emperor, an officer answered, voice shaking. All primary and secondary systems are locked. Even manual controls are unresponsive. Kale's sharp eyes turned toward the main screen. The small Terran ship looked harmless again. No glow. No visible power. Just a thin silver shape against the stars. How can one ship do this? He whispered. No one had an answer. Across the galaxy, millions were watching the live transmission. Other empires that once feared the Zarnak Empire now watched with wide eyes. The unbeatable fleet had fallen in less than an hour. On the bridge of the horizon, Captain Elias watched the damaged flagship carefully. Life signs? He asked. All stable, a crew member replied. We disabled systems only. No catastrophic hull breaches. Elias gave a small nod. Good. He turned to the communication officer. Open channel to the Emperor. Moments later, the face of Emperor Kale filled the human screen. His expression was no longer proud. It was tense. Controlled. But fear rested behind his eyes. You have made your point, human, Kale said coldly. Elias answered calmly, have we? Kale straightened. You used forbidden technology. Weapons beyond agreed galactic limits. Elias shook his head slowly. We signed no such limits. You never offered us a seat at your councils. The words were simple. But they hit hard. Kale remained silent for a moment. Then his voice lowered. What do you want? That question echoed across space. On the horizon, the crew waited for their captain's answer. Elias stepped closer to the screen. You surrounded our world. You demanded our surrender. You planned our extinction. His voice did not rise. It did not shake. It remained steady. We want assurance that Earth will never again be threatened by your empire. Kale's jaw tightened. And if I refuse? Elias did not answer right away. Instead, the horizon powered up again. Not with bright light. Not with loud energy. But with a deep vibration that slightly bent the nearby stars once more. On every Zarnak ship, warning alarms restarted, even without power. The message was clear. They could finish this. Kale saw it too. For the first time in centuries, the Zarnak Emperor understood true weakness. He had built his rule on fear. Now he faced someone who did not fear him at all. Slowly, Kale raised his hand. All Zarnak forces stand down, he ordered across open channels. Effective immediately. Gasps filled alien command decks across the galaxy. He continued, voice heavy but clear. The Zarnak Empire formally withdraws all hostile actions against Earth and its colonies. The statement echoed through space. On the horizon, no cheers erupted. No celebration began. Captain Elias simply nodded. Transmit treaty terms, he ordered his crew. Full military withdrawal from contested systems. Reparations for attacked colonies. Recognition of Terran sovereignty. Data streams crossed between the two ships. Kale reviewed the terms silently. He had no fleet left to argue with. After a long pause, he spoke again. We accept. The words felt like the collapse of an era. Across the galaxy, old alliances shifted instantly. Smaller nations that once served the Zarnak Empire began cutting ties. Fear of the Empire was gone. And all because of one ship. On the horizon, power levels slowly returned to normal. The blue distortions faded. The stars straightened. Captain Elias looked at the silent battlefield one last time. Set course for Earth, he said quietly. As the human ship prepared to leave, Emperor Kale watched it on his screen. One small vessel. No fleet. No army behind it. Yet it had broken the strongest empire in the galaxy without destroying it. As the horizon vanished into folded space, only one thought remained in Kale's mind. Humanity had not shown its full strength. It had shown restraint. And that was far more terrifying. The battlefield slowly cleared. Zarnak repair ships moved carefully between disabled war vessels. Emergency crews worked in silence. No one spoke loudly anymore. The fear of earlier battles had turned into something heavier, respect. Far from the ruined formation, the human ship Horizon reappeared briefly at the edge of the system. It did not stay to celebrate. It did not wait for praise. It transmitted one final message to every major power in the galaxy. The message was simple. Humanity seeks peace. But we will not accept chains. Across hundreds of star systems, leaders watched the replay of what had happened. The footage spread faster than light through quantum networks. Analysts paused it again and again, trying to understand the gravity pulses, the time distortions, the precision targeting. Some civilizations felt relief. Some felt fear. All felt caution. On Earth, citizens had been watching too. Massive screens in cities showed the moment the Zarnak fleet had frozen in space. Crowds had stood in silence as the single Terran ship faced impossible odds. Now cheers echoed across continents. But inside the Terran Defense Council, the mood was calm. An officer turned toward the large viewing screen. The Emperor has signed the full withdrawal agreement. Another added, multiple outer systems are requesting diplomatic contact with us. They want alliances. At the center of the room, an older woman with silver hair folded her hands. Send humanitarian ships to the contested colonies first, she said. Rebuild what was damaged. Show them who we are. Back on the horizon, Captain Elias stood alone for a moment on the observation deck. The stars stretched peacefully ahead. A young officer stepped beside him. Sir, she said quietly, you could have destroyed them. Elias kept his eyes on the distant light of Earth. Yes. Why didn't you? He thought for a moment before answering. Because fear builds enemies, he said. Respect builds balance. Behind him, the crew prepared for the long journey home. Repairs were minimal. Energy reserves were still high. The ship looked untouched, as if it had never faced the greatest fleet in the galaxy. But history had changed. Days later, reports came from across space. Former Zarnak-controlled worlds were declaring independence. Trade routes were reopening without military patrols. Smaller species were forming councils of their own. The balance of power had shifted in a single day. Not through destruction. Through demonstration. In the Zarnak capital, Emperor Kale stood before his council. The massive hall felt different now. Quieter. We underestimated them, one advisor admitted. Kale nodded slowly. Yes. He looked at a frozen image of the small human ship on a holographic display. One vessel, he said softly. They sent one vessel. Another advisor asked carefully, do we prepare retaliation in the future? Kale turned sharply. No. The room fell silent. We prepare cooperation, he corrected. If they truly wished to end us, we would not be standing here. The truth settled over the chamber. Humanity had not claimed territory. It had not demanded control. It had simply drawn a line. And proved it could defend it. Months later, a joint diplomatic summit was held in neutral space. For the first time, Zarnak and human representatives sat across from each other as equals. No fleets hovered in orbit. No weapons charged in secret. Only quiet understanding. As the meeting began, an alien reporter asked Captain Elias one final question. Why risk everything on one ship? Elias answered with the same calm voice the galaxy had come to recognize. Because we knew one was enough. The camera feed ended there. Across the galaxy, the lesson was clear. Humans did not shout their strength. They did not show all their cards. They waited. They endured. And when the moment came, they acted. From that day forward, no empire ever laughed at a single human ship again. Because now the galaxy understood something important. Humanity did not need 1,000 ships to be powerful. It only needed one.